In this center, we are going to analyze fact families. Here I have a fact family card. As you can see, it has a 5, a 3, and a 15. Now I know that this is a multiplication and division fact family card, and that tells me that 5 times 3 is going to give me 15, and also that 3 times 5 will give me 15. In addition to that, I know that 15 divided by 5 will give me a quotient of 3, and 15 divided by 3 will give me a quotient of 5. The first job in your fact family center is to record the actual fact family. Now with the card that I've pulled, I have a 5, a 3, and a 15. This tells me that 5 times 3 will equal 15, and 15 is going to be my total, so I've made sure to label total. I also know with my commutative property that 3 times 5 will also give me 15, and again 15 is my total, so you can see that it's labeled there. In your center, you are expected to label where the total is. Remember, multiplication always ends with the total. Now I've written my two multiplication equations. I know that in a fact family there are also two inverse equations. In this case, the inverse of multiplication is division. So I know that 15 divided by 5 will give me 3, and 15 is my total. Remember, division always starts with a total. I also know that 15 divided by 3 will then give me 5. Notice how I have also labeled where my total is. On your fact family center, you are expected to label your total for all 4 equations. The next step in your fact family center is to give a multiplication example. Now this is where you are going to prove one of your multiplication sentences with a model. You can choose either multiplication equation. I'm going to choose the first one, which was 5 times 3 equals 15. So I'm going to record 5 times 3 equals 15. And I'm going to label in my example what each of these numbers means. So I know that 5 and 3 are factors. So you can see I'm writing above and pointing to the 3 and the 5 to show that I know 5 and 3 are the factors. 15 is the total, and we also call it the product. So I'm going to write product over by 15, and in parentheses I'm going to write total because I always want to remember that product means the total number of items. And in this case, 5 groups of 3 will give me 15 total items. Now I've written out my equation, 5 times 3 equals 15. I need to prove it with a model. I know that the times symbol sometimes means groups of. So I can read this as 5 groups of 3. So I'm going to draw 5 groups. Here's group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, and group 5. 5 groups of 3. So I'm going to put 3 X's in each group. 1, 2, 3. There's one group of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I have now modeled 5 groups of 3 objects. If I count all of my X's up, I'm going to get a total of 15 X's. To finish my multiplication example, I'm going to put what I have just done in words. So I'm going to write 5 groups of 3 equals a total of 15 items. And that would conclude my multiplication example. I've written my multiplication equation, I've labeled factors and product, I drew my groups, 5 groups of 3, and I wrote my sentence, 5 groups of 3 equals a total of 15 items. My next step is to provide a division example. Now I can choose either of my division equations. For this example, I'm going to use the last division equation, which was 15 divided by 3 equals 5. So I'm going to go and record that. I'm going to write 15 divided by 3 equals 5. My first step is to label some of my numbers. I know 15 is again my total. Division always starts with a total, and I'm going to go ahead and label that 15 total. 3 I'm going to think of as the number of groups. So in this example, there's going to be 3 groups that I have to share my total of 15 objects with. The 5 is my quotient, and it really represents the number in each group. So I'm going to label number in each group. Okay, so I have 15 divided by 3 equals 5. Now I need my model. So I know I have a total of 15 objects. I can think of these as, 15 cookies. And I'm going to share those 15 cookies between 3 groups, or think of it as 3 plates. So I'm going to draw my 3 groups. Here's group 1, or plate 1, group 2, and group 3. I've got my 3 groups. Now when I fair share, I'm giving one at a time until I get up to 15. So if I'm thinking of these as cookies, I'm going to do circles for each cookie. So here I go fair sharing. So I'm going to count. Here's 1 cookie, 2, 3 cookies, 4, 5, 6 cookies, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 cookies. Notice how I gave one at a time to each plate as I was counting up to my total of 15. That's what we call fair sharing. All right, now I have my model. I have my 3 groups. I've fair shared 15 to show that there's 5 cookies in each group. I'm just going to write out my sentence. So I'm going to say 15 fair shared into 3 groups gives you 5 items in each group. And that concludes my division example. Here is an example of the entire sheet for one fact family. So you can see right here is where you record the fact family. Over here we have a multiplication example, and remember, you just pick one of your multiplication sentences that you want to prove. It could be the first or the second one, it doesn't matter as long as you prove it with a model and a sentence. Over here we have our division example. Same idea. You can pick either of the division equations. You just have to model them with a picture. And make sure that you're always labeling, especially where that total is, your factors, your product, your groups, number in each group, anything you can label, make sure you label to really show your understanding of the fact family.